What's up, guys? Let's talk about divine timing. Divine timing is really about learning to live in the flow, in a flow state. Because trusting that divine timing is always occurring, that every single thing that happens is occurring with divine timing. That is the key to living in a flow state, because then you finally surrendered external control. You finally surrendered to the flow. They say consciousness is like a river. And you're going down the river regardless. There's there's no choice now, and recognize that you are the river. All right, so there is no that, but there is two ways of going down the river that you are. And the one that many of us have learned throughout our life is the perception of trying to go against the current, of forcing things, of trying to go upstream. All right, you can't go upstream. You can only go downstream. You are the river, and you can only go in the direction that you're heading. You can't turn the river around. But when we are constantly analyzing everything that's happening, deciding, was this good? Was this bad? Was this right? Was this wrong? It doesn't matter. It is. It is. Now, of course, the true purpose of deciding, was this good or bad? Is this right or wrong? Is for spiritual growth, evolution, right? To discern and learn lessons, to learn from our experiences. So that is the reason we're even capable of analyzing something that already happened. It's because we are meant to learn lessons. We are meant to grow. We are meant to expand. But when we are constantly doing that, in many ways, we create our own suffering. We create our own suffering. Pretty much all of our suffering is self-created. By the amount of times we've rejected ourselves, by the amount of times we've believed someone else instead of what we knew to be true for us, from the amount of times we manipulated someone or allowed someone to manipulate us. And we don't realize that the only reason we were even allowed to manipulate each other is because some part of us was cooperative to that. And you may be unconscious to it. And so we end up feeling like a victim, or we look at ourselves as the problem and get very hard on ourselves, very critical of ourselves. And truthfully, we are all the biggest critic and judge of ourselves. We may have other people's voices or may have learned from other people how to treat ourselves, but ultimately, at the end of the day, we are still responsible for our state of being, for our state of mind. No one can heal you. People can help you heal, don't get me wrong. People can definitely help you heal. But no one can heal you and save you but yourself. And so flowing is a surrendering to what is, to what has been, to realizing that it's all about perspective. You can look at everything as happening to you, or you can look at everything as happening for you. Or you can have a mixed bag. Most people have a mixed bag. But you really do always have the choice with that. And so why wouldn't you choose that everything is happening for you? A huge part of my healing has been going back and looking at my life. Of course, it's a huge part of self-reflection, of self-awareness, is looking back. There is a time for that, right? But why do we look back? When we look back and we look at things as we thought they were, and we feel traumatized by them. We feel some type of difficult emotion with them. We look at it as something that happened to us that was not good for us. We look at it through a negative or fear-based perspective that is detrimental to us. But when you really understand that everything is happening for you and you trust that wisdom, you can look back at anything that ever happened, and now you can really ask the question and believe that there is a better perspective. Ask the question, why did this happen for me? As painful as this was at the time, as much pain as it has caused me after it happened, how can I now transmute that? Now, sometimes it's easy enough to just let it go. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes we could just let that thing go from the past. Just totally forgive it, forget it, let it go. Like, not forget it as in allow it to happen again, of course, but forget it as in I learned from it, I'm letting it go, you know? But sometimes we need a better perspective. We need a higher perspective, especially when it's, you know, when someone dies, or when we really hurt someone, or when someone really hurts us, you know, in a very major way. Sometimes it takes a higher perspective. And it is your responsibility to be open to that higher perspective. Because it exists. If a question exists, it implies that an answer exists. And Aria, hey, I'm trying to make a video here. Oh my goodness. And so here, I have to surrender to the flow, to divine timing. I could edit this. I don't know. I don't like editing. It takes so long. I don't know. I need to find someone to edit my stuff. It's too expensive. That's a limiting belief. I know. Whatever. It's fine. There is wisdom for everything you've ever experienced. You may not know what it is yet, but there is wisdom for it. There is a better perspective out there for you to find. But as long as you hold on to the old way of looking at things, as long as you hold on to the resentment, the regret, the shame, the guilt, the self-doubt, the self-image issues, the fear, as long as you hold on to that, as long as that is your reality, then that is what you will experience. And the only way to change that is to reframe it. And reframing it isn't undoing it. It's just looking at things from a better perspective. That perspective in the past did not serve me. It only hurt me. It was detrimental to me. It made me think less of myself. I was judging myself. I was judging others. I was judging the situation, whatever it was. And I know that that does not serve me. So instead, how can I be open to a higher perspective? How can I be open to letting this go? Ultimately, all of this healing will only come when you decide that you really don't deserve to suffer. No one deserves to suffer. No one. In fact, the default state of most humans is suffering. Suffering or distracting. Most of the time, it's one of the two, at least for the very wounded individuals, which is most of us. You know, we distract and use other people or media or whatever to distract us from the very obvious things that are right below the surface that we don't want to feel, that we don't want to address, that we don't want to think about. And we don't realize that going into those things is what's going to allow us to flow. You can't really trust divine timing if there's so much in your past that you don't trust happen for you, right? Like, if you really want to believe that everything happens for you and live from that place, you have to come to peace with everything that's ever happened. And realize that the only reason those things ever bothered you is because you lacked perspective. You lacked perspective. You didn't have the right frame of mind to perceive that thing that happened in a way that is loving. You know, realize, every time someone's betrayed you, there were red flags before that happened, right? Because everyone genuinely is doing their best with the level of consciousness that they're living at. They are. They may have a really delusional point of view. They may have a really delusional perspective, but they're doing that because they think it's best for them. They don't know a better way yet. And it doesn't mean we can force that on them. We have to honor free will. All right. Every soul that's here, part of divine timing and going with the flow is realizing that every individual soul here is on their own journey, and we have to trust that what they are going through is perfect for them. We just do. It doesn't mean we don't offer the option to say, hey, here's a better perspective, but if they're genuinely not interested, then we have to be the ones to let it go. Because then we're creating suffering for ourselves. We're making their suffering our suffering, right? And then we're not respecting ourselves. We're not loving ourselves when we do that. And that is the hardest thing for those of us who get to a more expanded place, who want to live unconditionally and love unconditionally. It's the letting go of helping people or trying to force help, because we can't really help or fix anyone. Service is serving where it is wanted, right? Service is required here. And when someone doesn't want your help, that means service is not required here. That's a no. It's a no, right? And the more that we try and force it, the more we're actually not honoring and respecting them. And we're not honoring and respecting ourselves. And sometimes those people that you have to stop being around because, they're just not in a similar place, in a resonant place with you, you know, sometimes they won't understand why you don't talk to them as much. They won't understand why you don't come around as much or anything like that. It's because, you know that you're forcing things. Forcing things is trying to go upstream, but you can only go down. So even though you've got the boat turned around and you're looking the other way, you're still going the same direction. So you can either go with it and relax, or you can keep looking the other way and getting blindsided by everything. Divine timing is trusting everything. You don't know what is best for you, right? You may have an idea of what you would absolutely love to experience. You may have an idea of what you've asked for, but truthfully, you don't know what the best case scenario is in every situation. The best case scenario, often when we are constantly analyzing and judging what's happening around us, the best case scenario is often something that we perceive as bad or negative. But if you saw things from a higher perspective, you'd be like, oh, this was the best way that this could happen. And there is great purpose in that, and there is much to learn from that. And it's okay that it happened. In fact, it's great that it happened. What a blessing. But from the lower self, from what you've learned and constantly analyzing and judging things and always placing assumptions on things based on prior experiences, because you do that so much, because we do that so much, we create suffering. And we are fighting the flow of life. We are fighting our flow. And ultimately, we are creating suffering for ourselves and those around us. And so the best thing to do is to actually learn divine neutrality, to learn balance, to learn to be the observer. And from this place, when you practice that, when you practice something happens and you practice taking a pause, taking a breath, not reacting, right? Your first, if there is a reaction, it's to pause and take a breath, right? Because if you're actually trusting that everything's happening for you, that the external is not in your control, if you're actually trusting that, then you wouldn't freak out whenever anything happens. Because you just be like, oh, this is what's happening now. Let's see what happens. Let's observe. I have no way of knowing whether this is good or bad. I just trust the wisdom that everything's happening for me, because God is love and everything is God. And from that place, that's how life can be easier. And it's hard when maybe nothing's happening. That's been something I've been going through a lot personally, is that, nothing's really been going on. And I thought, I knew best. I thought I knew that I was ready and that things were ready to happen. But the more I've sat through this process, the more I've come to realize that I needed rest. Because I've gone, the better part of 2 years, nonstop healing and self-reflection and inner work and all these things, and I haven't allowed myself to rest for a long time. And from the external, it looks like I get a lot of rest because I only work a few days a week. set schedule anyway, I have made it a priority to have more free time and more time to create and learn and be creative and all that, and to have more time to heal and work on myself. But I haven't really let myself rest. And I've kind of been torturing myself with other people's opinions or what other people might think, you know. And even though I don't I don't want to do that, and I know better than to do that, sometimes I still do it. And then I have to catch myself and I have to check myself, you know, and get back to the basics. Get back to the basics of just knowing who I am, knowing that there is a time for this and a time for that. And the last couple of months has been a lot of rest, and I've needed it. And honestly, I've struggled to give it to myself. I've struggled to accept the place that I'm in. I've struggled to accept, you know, that the really exciting things that I want to experience, they're going to come after a period of rest because I need the energy, you know? My body and my nervous system and everything needs the time to catch up so that I can be ready when opportunities start to come in. So I can be ready when new relationships start to come in. You know, all of it happens in divine timing. And for weeks there, I was fighting. I was trying to go against the current. I was trying to make things happen. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was trying my best to flow. But looking back, I could see very clearly that I had a lot of anxiety, that I was really fighting the rest, that I really wasn't letting myself rest as much as I needed to. I would think because I have a lot of energy and excitement for life, that means something needs to be happening, right? I wasn't allowing myself to be just bored and relaxed, like, you know, which is something I haven't done a lot, you know, in the last 13, 14 years, is allow myself to just rest, to really just let go of what's going on and just be here and be happy that I just get to do nothing, you know? Because I know a lot of doing is coming. A lot of stuff to do, a lot of opportunities are going to come because of law of attraction, because of the work I've put in on myself, because I understand reality creation and the flow of everything and how frequency and vibration and electromagnetism works and all this stuff. Because I've gotten to this point, I can trust that wisdom. I can trust that perspective because it's been proven to me time after time after time as I've been learning it. It's become integrated, or it's being integrated, right? All at the same time. And so learning to flow is really just trusting that if nothing's going on, if nothing's happening, or if things feel like they're falling apart, if everything feels like it's crumbling, that's just to give you a new foundation. It's just to let everything burn down so that it can be built up again in a new way, in a better way, you know? And when we fight these things, when we fight these occurrences, they're going to happen regardless. But the more we fight it, the more we suffer. The more we flow with it, the more peace we have, the more joy we have, the more love we experience. And, you know, the unlearning of those wounds, is a weird way to say wounds, I don't know, whatever. The unlearning of these wounds is so, it takes time. It takes time in the body to undo those patterns, to create new ones in their place. And the more that we can just sort of consciously sit with the discomfort of that energy changing within us, the easier it will be. And you may think you're ready to go. You may think you've got all the tools you need. You may think, oh, I know who I am now. Everything's going to go great. I can go out and do stuff. But even though mentally you may be at that place, it doesn't mean that all other levels have caught up. And there is a time for rest. Like, that's one of the most important parts of the Genesis story of creation, is on the seventh day, God rested. You think, oh, the infinite, eternal source of everything rested? Like, why? Like, it's just telling us, like, hey, if all that is can take a rest, so can I. All right? I don't have to constantly be producing and achieving and creating. I probably do it too much. I probably do too much. I feel it, like, from a 3D sense, it feels like I'm doing very little. But from an energetic and mental sense, I've always been doing a lot, and I continually do a lot, and I have not allowed myself to rest in that way. Not enough. And so a lot of this has been helping me learn how to rest, trusting that divine timing, trusting that flow, trusting that when things start to pick up, that'll be divinely timed. When things are going slow, that's divinely timed. There's nothing that's not divinely timed, because there's nothing that's not divine. Everything in existence is the one eternal infinite source. It's all divine. All of humanity, everything humanity's done, everything humanity has created, everything we've experienced, it's all divine. Because what do we think of as divine? Divine is just God, source, spirit. And there's nothing that's not that. Nothing real anyway. So trust the flow. Trust the wisdom of divine timing. You don't know what you don't know. And when you look at everything as happening for you, that everything's going perfectly, your life will get much lighter. It doesn't have to be heavy. It doesn't have to be hard. It can flow. You can flow. Much love, my friends. I'll see you in the next one.